You literally cannot communicate or negotiate with a narcissist. This is a person who feels totally and completely empty inside. So it's scarcity to the utmost extreme all the time.
Do you feel like narcissists can ever feel full?
Their presence is felt before they open their mouth.
How do I reach an agreement with somebody who doesn't really want to be agreed with?
So you have to...
Welcome to the Wealthy Business Podcast. I'm your host, Javi Chavez. Today I have somebody who I'm really interested to talk to, somebody who's a master negotiator, already a very accomplished author, and now someone who has a new book who's about to come out, was the top 1% in the world, or I guess in the US, attorney. So Rebecca Zung, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you. It's so fun to be here with you.
Love it. So I've been called a narcissist before. And so I want to know what the definition of a narcissist is.
So I like to use a layperson's definition because there is a DSM-5, which practitioners use, but I like to use a layperson's definition, which is based on a spectrum, but all the way at the end of a spectrum is what we call narcissistic personality disorder, or what mental health professionals call narcissistic personality disorder. And this is a person who feels totally and completely empty inside. And so they have to get all of their value from external sources through narcissistic supply. And so it have like this black hole inside of them. So it's scarcity to the utmost extreme all the time. And so it's complete feelings of inadequacy and fear. And so all of the time they're looking for ways to fill this black hole. And it's like this pain and shame to the utmost extreme. And so they either get it from what I call diamond level supply, which is how they look to the world, ego, it's big houses, money, cars, good looking people around them, celebrity, how they look to the world. It's, image. Or it's what I call co-level supply, which is manipulating people, degrading people, treating people poorly, passive aggression, jealousy, envy, all of those kinds of things cause them to push people down to make themselves feel better. But it's constant and they can never get enough. And that's why they can't feel any empathy for anybody else, because it's this constant pain and shame that they feel internally.
Got it. And why is there a correlation? It feels like there is between like high achievement and narcissism.
Oh, sure, because it's constantly hustling for a feeling of worthiness all the time. But, what people mistake as really being about them is, yes, they're constantly making, going after people and attacking people and all that sort of thing. But really, it's about them trying to feel worthy constantly. And so they use all of these methods of manipulation or tactics to try to trip on these feelings of whatever they're trying to do to feel worthy. But people who are around them, their targets, victims, or whatever you want to call it, those are just really all methods to try to, fill this empty void that they have inside of them all the time. And so people end up feeling totally and utterly depleted, yet they're still starving.
Got it. And is there a cure, or is there a way do you feel like narcissists can ever feel full?
No, they really can't. I have spoken to so many different practitioners, so many mental health practitioners, so many different psychiatrists, psychologists. And here's the thing. Maybe is the answer, but here's the thing I want to tell people who are in relationships with these people is work on changing yourself. It's hard enough to change your own neuronal patterns. 90% of the thoughts that you have are the same thoughts that you had yesterday, and changing your own neuronal patterns is hard enough. Sitting around trying to change somebody else and trying to change somebody who has literally no self-awareness, nor do they want to, is nearly almost impossible. So work on changing yourself, and don't sit around waiting for somebody who's probably emotionally abusive and has no capacity for empathy to try to change. It is really not going to be the best tactic and strategy for your life.
That makes sense. Yeah, I get that. And you mentioned something where, somebody who doesn't know, I think I forget the exact words that you use, but basically, how many narcissists know they're narcissists?
Yeah, well, I mean, they don't have a capacity for, to
even feel.
Because it is a strategy for survival, because it attacks their very survival. Their very survival is project, deflect, because that attacks their very core being to feel that sense of, I'm going to take responsibility for things that I did wrong. And, that they're so fragile as it stands, because they feel these are people who have the most shame, who have the least amount of self-esteem. And they're trying to cover this up all the time. So to take responsibility for something that they did wrong, or to make it look like they, are less than perfect, is absolutely the last thing that they're ever going to want to do. And so it's just so far afield from what they would ever want to do that it's probably not the best plan of action for somebody who's in relationship with someone like that.
That makes sense. So just
pack
up.
It is a spectrum, and we all have some element of it, but as you get further and further toward the end of the spectrum, it's probably late.
For sure. I think there's, it seems like narcissism or being a narcissist has become a lot more of a buzzword, or maybe we're just recognizing it more because mental health has become a more larger part of what people are consuming in terms of content, what they're thinking about. So do you think that there's just more narcissists in the world, or that we're diagnosing more of them?
I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I can tell you that what was really, really interesting to me, and especially as a person who teaches people how to communicate with narcissists, how to negotiate with narcissists, one of the things that I found the most interesting in my research for my latest book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win, was that how a narcissist was formed, or how a person like this comes to being. And that is, of course, it happens in childhood through trauma. And that is that we as human beings, when we are exposed to traumatic situations, it causes us to go into fight or flight. So our sympathetic nervous system causes our brains to emit hormones, chemicals, adrenaline and cortisol, so that we can prepare to be stronger and faster, and all of those things as our caveman predecessors prepared us for, right? And so, but what happened was, as children, and if children are exposed to traumatic situations on a continuous basis, and it can be emotional neglect too, by the way. Emotional neglect actually falls in this category. And then the limbic system part of the brain, which controls emotions, can actually not develop properly. It can actually cause arrested development in that part of the brain, especially the cortisol, that stress hormone, can cause arrested development in that part of the brain. And so while the prefrontal cortex part of the brain can continue to develop, so that thinking and all of that part of the brain can continue to develop, there's there's a disparation between those two parts of the brain. So one part of the brain continues to develop, the other one doesn't develop as quickly as it should. And so in that limbic system part of the brain, there's also memory is involved in there in some ways. And so what happens with narcissists, there's also a part of their brain, a part of their personality called splitting. And what that is they see things as good or bad, or you're either for me or against me. And so, what happens is, if you're either on my side or you're not. And so what happens is when they perceive a slight, so it could be verbal or nonverbal. So it could be an eye roll, or it could be a perceived tone of voice, or it could be a perceived body language move, or it could any kind of perceived slight, whether it's rational or not. Normally it's not, but it could be, anything where they feel a loss of control, where they feel that they're going to be exposed in a situation, where they feel like somebody has slighted them in some way. Then, because they're very easily slighted, their egos are extremely fragile. Then there's something called narcissistic injury is triggered. And that means then they go from that thinking brain to then the emotional center of the brain is triggered. That narcissistic injury is triggered. Then the limbic system part of the brain takes back over for them. And now they're no longer in control. That limbic system part of their brain is in control. And now they're angry, they're mad, they're this, they're that. I'm going to take you down. I'm going to take, and so really the thing that I want people to know is that you literally cannot communicate or negotiate with a narcissist in the same way that you can with anybody else, because at that point, you're now dealing with a person who's no longer rational, no longer reasonable. And they'll take themselves down to take you down.
Interesting. And everything that you just mentioned made me think, it would be incredibly difficult to even have any sort of serious conversation with a narcissist. So how can you even negotiate with a narcissist?
So I have a question. Have you ever been in a situation like that before?
I don't know if to be honest, it never crossed my mind. I was like, oh, this person is for sure a narcissist. And maybe I'm lucky. Maybe I'm blessed. I think I've talked to people who have narcissistic tendencies, or, hey, like this person truly doesn't feel empathy for somebody else. Or if I am negotiating with somebody like that, I'm like, okay, well, and I think about this in probably almost any negotiation I go into. I'm like, okay, well, what's in it for them? How can I serve them? And how can they feel like they won? Right. And so
exactly. In my other negotiation book, Negotiate Like You Matter, that was all that was what it was about. And, matter was my methodology. And I had this whole notion that everybody has to come away with something that they have to feel like they're heard. That's what matter was about. That's just not, you can't negotiate like that when you're dealing with a narcissist. It's a whole different ballgame.
I hear you. And so I saw you have a whole framework. I think it's the SLAY framework, right?
Yeah.
So what is that acronym?
Strategy, leverage, anticipate, you. So, when you're dealing with a narcissist, they don't care if you walk away with something that you want or whatever, because from their perspective, they still want that, what I call cold level supply. The reason why people can't settle their cases, can't get their get their negotiations, if it's just a negotiation, to any kind of fruition, is because they enjoy the process of manipulating. And So what people think often is they think, well, a narcissist just wants to win. They want to, get the upper hand. They just want money, that sort of thing. That is incorrect. That's not the case. They enjoy the process of making a score. They enjoy the process of just the game.
So interesting. Well, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, but why do you think that is? Like, why would somebody get enjoyment out of just watching you squirm? And then my follow-up question is, how do you deal with that?
Well, the first part is it's just the game of control. It's just control. It's just control. Mm. It's no different than, the kid who finds the caterpillar or the earthworm and just digs in and watches it. It takes it.
I see what you're saying. They pour salt on the poor snail or whatever it is.
It just watches it move around and sees what it does. It's just really no different than that. It's just the game of it, because they really just want to see what happens and they just enjoy the process. It just feeds their ego. They just think it's funny or whatever. And they just continue to get a rise out of it. When I remember knowing a narcissist, it was a sort of a distant family member, but I remember that at family gatherings that this particular person would say things to people that were purposely, controversial. Mm-hmm. And then the other person would start to get upset or into a thing with this particular person. And then another person would say, now we're having a conversation, and think it was funny. But then the other person was upset. It wasn't funny at all. But that's how the other person would, they enjoyed that. And so, that's what I'm talking about, so it's the game of it. It feeds their ego.
Yeah. That makes sense. And I get it. To some level, everybody enjoys some part of that game. Obviously, like people enjoy healthy debate. People enjoy, at least people in business. I do enjoy like a negotiation, but I think it's more so to my goal, or I win a negotiation when we reach an agreement, right? I think it seems like the narcissist might just enjoy the negotiation to push some buttons. Would that be accurate?
Enjoy the pushing of the buttons. Yes.
Got it.
And so, like, the end of that is like, well, then what am I going to do now?
So when you're dealing with somebody who just wants to push your buttons, how do I reach an agreement with somebody who doesn't really want to be agreed with?
Right. So you have to, slay, right? So strategy is figuring out what it is that you want. So what's your vision? You have to have a very clear vision. And so many times when I'm dealing with people who've been at the effective like this for so long, it's hard for them to come up with what is their vision in a positive term. So a vision is not, I want them to stop. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want their lies, or, like that, because really so many times that's what people will say. That's not a vision. A vision is, I want, to buy this house, and I want this, and I want, this person out of my life, or whatever it is. What is it that you want? I want peace. I want to live on the beach, and I want to within 3 weeks or 3 months, or whatever it is. Like, what is it that you want that's in positive terms? And then and then creating an action plan from that. So that's, all part of your strategy. And then leverage is tied up in creating diamond level, figuring out what their diamond level supply is and their coal level supply. So your coal level supply is, always pretty much jerking you around. And then the diamond level supply is figuring out what is more important for them to keep than the supply that they get from jerking you around. And there's always something. They will protect and defend that diamond level supply to their death, even more important than their kids, more important than anything, how they look, their image, more important than anything. And that's going to inform how you create your leverage. So, and there might be more than one. I mean, it might be more than one. It might be, employees. It might be their company. It might be their new girlfriend. It might be, judges. It could be a number of different types of diamond level supply. It might be, there's celebrity. There's a lot of different diamond level supply. So there's many different layers of it, but creating leverage in the negotiation such that it's sort of like, okay, the retina source of supply, it's more important for you to keep than the supply that you get from manipulating. So that's part of it. I mean, and then of course there's going to be other forms of ways that you can potentially formulate your negotiations as well. I mean, you could seed things so that it kind of becomes their idea, and so that you can kind of fluff for favor, vomit later, which I call like narcissistic fluffing, and so there's other.
What was that? Narcissistic what?
Fluffing.
Fluffing.
I call it. Yeah, so I said fluff for favor, vomit later. So you kind of what I call pickling, manipulating the manipulator. So you can kind of see things that it sort of seems like it's their idea, and get them talking, because they'll talk and kind of tell you what their plan is. They will always lie. They will always have different stories on different things. Keep track of emails, keep track of text messages, keep track of conversations, because you will always be able to find inconsistencies in things that they do. And once you do that, that always becomes great leverage down the road. You never think that you're going to keep track, so that's potential ways that you can create summaries for your negotiation. And, once you start doing all of that, it all starts building upon each other, and you can then present it and say, hey, listen, this is, option A. Option A is, the nice way. Option B is, the way that, you probably don't want. And, but we can go with whatever way you would like. And then, A is anticipate, how the narcissist is going to be, and be 2 steps ahead of them. And so many different things that I, kind of grab and go tools that I have for people to not be baited and triggered by a narcissist. And then why is you, and focusing on you being on the offensive instead of on the defensive. And then also your mindset, 100% of anything is ever won by you having a powerful mindset and knowing that you are valuable, and that, people will think what you tell them to think, and, things like that. So if you don't believe you can write, nobody can help. So
love it. And I really want to, You mentioned something earlier about, a narcissist always lies and they always create these stories. Do you think that they are creating these stories for, like, do they actually believe the stories they're telling?
I do think that a lot of times, honestly, because it goes back to that limbic brain.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't used to think that. I didn't used to think that. But now going back to that limbic brain and this sort of lapse in memory, I'm starting to think that they sort of do. And I really started to think that maybe they don't remember the things that they do when they are in this emotional, firestorm or whatever it is that you want to call it.
Totally. I think that's been my experience. And I've never had to deal with a narcissist in the workplace, but definitely like in personal experience, in personal life, I feel like they can't reason with the actual truth. It seems like they just, they create their own reality and that reality will change a year from now, 6 months from now, a week from now, so it seems like it's quite difficult to have any sort of conversation with them. So I really want to take it back though. How did you get into this niche specifically? Because I know that you were a very high performing attorney, and were you in divorce law? Is that correct?
I did high net worth divorce litigation. And, you would think, oh, that's how she learned it. But to be honest with you, I didn't know what a narcissist was. I heard the word thrown around many, many times, but I just sort of was, okay, everybody's a narcissist. I get it, and I didn't really dig into what the word was all that much. And, for a long time, all the wives would say their husbands were controlling, and all the husbands would say their wives were crazy. And then everybody became a narcissist, and it was sort of the proverbial eye roll. And I really think that that's what 99% of all attorneys still think. And same thing with judges, to be honest with you. It wasn't until just a few years ago that I decided to merge my practice with a couple of other guys and go into more entrepreneurial endeavors myself. And I ended up in a business partnership with somebody who turned out to be a covert narcissist. And this person was a female, actually, and it was business. And I actually didn't even meet her all that many times in person. It was more, a business partnership that didn't even end up going very far that much. But it was only about a year, but it was long enough that it was horrible and heinous, and it caused me a lot of stress and angst and anxiety and a lot of sleepless nights. And I didn't know what was going on. And this is after I had already had my law practice and everything else. And I can tell you that I had been bullied as a kid for being Asian. And, all of the tactics and everything that these people do, that I just remember after I finally got out of that situation, somebody said to me, oh, she was a covert narcissist. I thought, what is that? And so I started reading about it. And at the time, I was still practicing law part-time. And so once I started reading about it, I thought, oh my God, that's exactly what this person was. And I couldn't get enough. I couldn't get enough about learning about it. And so then I started applying what I was learning about narcissism to my cases. And it was like I discovered penicillin. And that's how I started doing this. And it was just sort of like a whole confluence of events, because then I started, at the time I was learning about YouTube and I was learning about funnels. And so I started on YouTube during COVID, and I did one video on how to negotiate with a narcissist. And I had like 300 subscribers at the time and like nothing going on. But I was definitely, my family and all. And I did one video on how to negotiate with a narcissist, and all of a sudden I had like 700 views. And so I thought, okay, maybe I'll make more content on that. And, I decided, okay, well, maybe I'll create a course around it. So I came up with Slay, and I went live with the course on March 11th, not knowing that what was about to happen in the world. And I literally by January of 2021, I had made $1.1 million on that $500 course.
Wow.
And I had over 100,000 subscribers on my channel.
And that was all through organic marketing, right? Were you running paid ads?
Zero.
I love that story because it's very similar to how we've built everything here was all through organic video content. And there's a ton of parallels where same thing, Ryan started during COVID, making YouTube videos, making TikToks, and we've had multiple, 8 figures now through, creating info products and creating our funnels and all that type of stuff. So when you were doing all of that, were you a one-woman operation?
One woman. I had one funnel guy in Pakistan who was helping me on the back end.
That's amazing. That's so impressive.
I always said it was the Rebecca Zung show. That's it. I was just the two of us.
And then so at the time or even now, how big is the team?
Even now, it's definitely grown a lot because I have a certification program out now, and I have a lot more going on. So, but it's still not huge. I mean, I do have, my son works with me, and I'm head of sales. I have a lot of salespeople now because, we get about 1,500 to 2,000 leads a day.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's pretty crazy now.
What's your mission now with the book and obviously all the education that you're putting out?
I have 5 VAs. I'm getting ready to hire a 6th one. Yeah. And I have about 5 salespeople, but I need more.
Wow. Well, if someone needs a job that's listening, hopefully they'll come your way.
Keeping up with the leads. So I'm actually getting ready to, we're building HubSpot out right now. It's insane what's going on in my life right now. Well, Slay the Bully just hit the USA Today bestseller list this week. So
congratulations.
Yeah. My life is crazy right now. It's good. And it's in a great way, but it's all good stuff. I'm not complaining. It's just catching up to the curve. I'm always trying to catch up to the curve in my life. I've got 220,000 on my email list as we speak today. I still really haven't figured out the whole paid ads thing very well. I think I finally hired a company that's going to be able to help me with that. But it's all been organic. I have 120,000 in my Facebook group. Everything's been organic so far. About 400,000 on your subscribers on YouTube.
Nice.
So,
yeah, we've worked with supposedly some of the best agencies in the game, and no one's figured out paid ads for us, honestly. We actually had to reevaluate the last probably like 2 months where we're like, what, screw this. We're just going to go back to what works, triple down on organic content. Obviously we still do run paid advertising, but it's not our priority anymore. It's more so of like, hey, if somebody's already in our funnel, whatever, we'll retarget them and we'll try to get them back in. But yeah, I think the best investment that we've ever made has been in organic marketing for sure. But tell me about the book. So,
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, what were we saying?
I was going to add, like, I'm also trying to figure out affiliates. It's like, because I have a friend, he's like, it's a three-legged stool, affiliates, paid, and organic, I'm like, okay, so I'm always trying to figure this whole game out with that because I have this massive list and it's all been organic for me. It's always been all organic.
What are the price points of your products?
Well, so right now, this is the other whole thing, right now it's all been mostly the $500 course, but this past summer, I rolled out my $6,000 certification, which is doing really well, really well. I mean, when I debuted it, I had 1,100 people on my first webinar, and so I'm continuing to do that. I love my certified coaches; they're amazing. I want to actually have a next level up for my certified coaches.
Yeah, that's what I was say.
Yeah, I really need to do like a deeper dive with my certified coaches and have a next level up for them. And the next thing I really want to do actually is pivot into not just narcissism, but doing more like, high conflict communication, difficult communications, or just communications in general, like, how to have conversations, how to have, speak strongly in any kind of conversations, right? I mean, I negotiated for years. I was the keynote speaker for the American Bar Association in 2018 in negotiation. This is all before this whole narcissism thing blew up, right? I mean, there's not very many women who are teaching people how to negotiate powerfully in this space, right? And stand in their power. So
and I think it's a very different, like, whether you agree with it or not, I think it's just a fact that men and women communicate differently. And I think there is a big void right now in the marketplace, or just a void in demand for a coach, an educator for women to negotiate. And I think it was another stat that you had in one of your videos. What is it? 54% of men negotiate for a salary or something like that. And then like 9% of women.
Oh, I mean, all that stuff is from my previous book that Robert Shapiro wrote the foreword for, closing color psychology in negotiating. It's so funny because that was one of the first videos that I did that had like 30 views. And it literally was my mom and her church friends. I swear to God. My mom's like, I watched your video. This is before, the whole thing blew up. And I just looked at it the other day and I never even changed out the thumbnail. Still had like the old janky thumbnail, like before even I was doing with thumbnails. I'm like, oh my God, I told you I need to fix that thumbnail. But I'm like, oh my God, it has 12,000 views now, because else is blown up.
I love it.
Yeah. So I could totally do, just regular negotiations, Chris Voss actually wrote the foreword for this book for me, so yeah. I mean, we have a relationship. So that's so
amazing. So yeah. Now, I mean, what else can readers expect from the book?
Well, I am really about standing in your authentic power. Narcissists are all about fear-based power. And what my message to people is if you stand in your authentic power, if you know who you are, then that's a narcissist kryptonite. Because I mean, I remember even having conversations with, back when I had my law practice, because I was turning away like 90% of my business, and people would be, narcissists would come in and say, "Oh, is there any room in your retainer?" They're like, "No, but if you want somebody cheaper, I'll be happy to give you names." I mean, like, just standing in your power and knowing who you are that's the key.
So how does one person channel or find their authentic power?
Well, there's so many different techniques to that. I mean, one of the things that I've been working with, I want to bring in this guy that I absolutely love, is starting to channel like the coherence between your heart and your brain. There's like, have you ever heard of HeartMath?
HeartMath? No.
HeartMath. So your heart is actually 5 seconds ahead of your brain, and so there's actually your emotion center is not actually your brain; it's actually your heart. There's actually this is energetically, not just spiritually, but totally, energetically, vibrationally. I mean, we have energetic, like magnetic fields around our hearts. And so if you can do meditations and things around coherence between your brain and your heart, you can actually, this is like Jedi stuff.
Oh, totally. Seriously. Yeah, no, I mean, I try to meditate almost every day. So this is super interesting to me. Yeah. So there's actually a monitor. I mean, your aura rings actually do measure like HPV. Yeah, your HRV. Yeah.
HRV, heart rate variability. Yes, heart rate variability. But HeartMath actually takes it one step further and can measure it even further and teach you how to get into complete coherence and teach you how to really become like powerful. And so once you can do that, you can actually, so like, let me give you an example. Mm-hmm. A narcissist can sense, or people can sense, when a person has like an insecurity or a fear, whether or not they can articulate that or even consciously know that they can. And that's what they prey upon. So when a person enters a room, their presence is felt before they open their mouth. That confidence, that air, that feeling, that knowing is felt before they even open their mouth. And so when that gap is closed, that gap of fear, that gap of insecurity is closed, that narcissist instinctively knows this person is no longer somebody I can, that person is no longer available to me.
No longer a target.
No longer a target. Yeah.
So interesting. So, and I understand that, it's with the HeartMath, but what other skills or what other ways can somebody who may be feeling vulnerable or may be insecure and wants to get into their authentic power, how can somebody start, right? Because I'm sure everybody listening or just in general would love to not be a target of a narcissist or not feel like they are, stuck.
So, yeah, the first thing I always tell people to do, because there's like baby steps, right? I always say to step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free, because you're course correcting a lot of times. Mm-hmm. If you've been retreating or you've been at the effect of a person who's you feel this fear, you feel where so many times when I'm talking to people, they feel like, there's going to be backlash. It's going to be bad. I don't want to lose the client, or I'm afraid to lose the deal, or I need the money, or these are the types of things that I hear a lot of time. So, and the thing is that it's just so much the opposite, it's true, right? Because people respond more to confidence. And so what I say is start to look at them, first of all, baby steps. So stop the retreating. So put one boundary down and start to look at them as if they are a toddler having a tantrum on the floor, especially if they are having a tantrum in front of you. And so you can because remember what I said about their brains, right? So you can start to realize it's not you. So stop taking it personally. And just, especially if they're attacking you personally, and just start to go, but, I would say put an invisible boundary down around you. So invisible, sort of like transparent sort of barrier down around you. I'd be like Superman with the bullets off your chest, or Wonder Woman with the bullets off your wrists, and just, start to look at them and be like, oh, I can see that you're upset. I can see that you're angry. You can start to observe their behavior to them rather than taking it personally. Mm-hmm. Or we can have this conversation when you're calmed down. I can, it appears that you're angry about this. Just like as if, whatever it is that's triggering them, it's not about you. Your triggers are not my responsibility, just like my triggers are not your responsibility. People's triggers are their own responsibility to take care of. Mm-hmm. So remember that. That's the first thing. And then the second thing to remember is what's negotiable and what's not. What's negotiable? Contracts, issues, terms. What's not negotiable? Your self-respect, your self-esteem, who you are. Period. So, so when it comes time to have a conversation, thanks for the feedback, but we can talk later when you're calmed down. I agree with you. I agree with you that we're not going to agree. I was like, I agree with you because, they hear I agree with you, but you don't have to, you can agree to nothing. I agree with you that we're not going to agree. I agree with you that I agree with you that that's your opinion.
Yeah. That's almost sales 101 too. When people, acknowledge, agree, and then, move into your next thing. So I love the kind of the synergy there. And then what's next?
Yeah. So, and then, the when you start to pivot and you start to make that U-turn is when you can start to go, okay, now we can start to have conversations, right? Mm-hmm. And that's when you can start to doing things like making a plan stand or something like that, where I say, when you go to meet with them, have an agenda, have a plan, have a scope, have a time limit, that sort of thing. Because then you can make sure they know about it in advance. But when you get to meet with them, don't let them go away from the issues. Don't let them go past the time limit. Because when they start to talk about 14,000 other things or attack you on things, no, this is what we're talking about today.
Yep. Yes. And I want to ask about that point, because I've seen that happen a lot in negotiations, or just like, especially with narcissists, where they will, the second you start bringing up issues, they tend to deflect very, very quickly or try to flip the script. So what are some strategies around keeping it on schedule?
Well, that's why I say, making a plan, Stan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you have an agenda ahead of time. Make sure you have a scope. Make sure you have a time limit. Make sure that they know about it in advance. This is what we're talking about today. We're going to keep it to this. And we're going to make sure we keep on task with this, because they will try to go all over the place. Otherwise, if you try to just bring something up, why are you bringing that up now? And then when you try to bring up, well, I want to talk to you about these suspicious text messages. Why are you bringing that up now? Well, when would be a good time? Oh, now you're interrupting me. I didn't interrupt you. No, now you're raising your voice. I didn't raise my voice. I can't talk to you when you're raising your voice. It's like, and then it's like you're off into like 15 different directions, this whole word salad conversation, like, because they just never want to get to the point.
That makes sense. And so with, if we keep it on track. Oh, go ahead.
But actually it doesn't purposely.
Yeah. I mean, do narcissists make sense? No, but I think like this is so important though, because creating these strategies for somebody who's it's like managing somebody who's not manageable. It seems like, and just trying to tailor the conversation towards reaching some sort of agreement. And what's next for you over these next, 6 months or so?
It's such a good question. I would say that it is rolling out I just rolled out my Slavability Club, which is my new book club, which is super exciting, which is my continuity program, which I just rolled out. I did my soft launch, but I'm doing a more formal launch coming up here. And that was actually grew out of my launch club, and people loved it so much during my launch that we decided to make a continuity out of it, because they loved meeting, they wanted to do it more often. So I actually have my master high conflict certification coaches, which has been amazing. And so it's super fun. And so I have that. I plan to do a whole lot more speaking. I want to do more live events. I've not done any live events yet, but I plan to start doing them.
Nice.
And a lot more with collaborations with other influencers, actually, which I've not done anything of. I have a very robust platform that I know that I could start, leveraging. And I haven't done anything.
Yeah, just get on other people's stages. I know we have a lot of people who talk about that, where, I leverage your platform, but there's so many other platforms and niches that I think could benefit from your experience, your teaching. And so just getting your message in front of other people, I think, is going to be great. And you said you don't have any events lined up yet?
I don't have any live events
We're
lined
gonna
up
have
yet.
to get you at WealthCon at some point. I don't know if you talked to Ryan about it, but we do it every quarter. We have close to about this one. We should have about 1,500 people, and we're always, looking for more female speakers as well. I think just given the nature of our industry, we kind of talked about it earlier, but we don't have as many. We're always on a shortage, so we would love to, possibly bring you out. I think it'd be so much fun.
He and I talked a bit about it, actually, and I would love to do it. Yes,
yeah.
We definitely talked about it, and we talked about some other things as well, because I think he said he's got something new for attorneys, some sort of podcast, something as well.
So we do have like a creator workshops that we do for this, and then next thing for WealthCon, we're gonna have, this one's in January. This one we got Tebow and a few other fun speakers, but then we'll have the next one. And when we are picking out speakers, I'll make sure that, we bring you up as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for us, we love live events. Live events have been instrumental in our growth because similar to, I'm sure, what you've seen with all your network, right? When we're able to get everybody in person, they make connections, and then it's so much more than just like our teachings. It's now, the relationships that they build. And obviously we're very real estate heavy. So these guys do real estate deals together and all that other stuff. So yeah, I think we're going to keep doing live events I think we're trying to do 33 next year. So it should be fun.
Oh my God. Yeah, I definitely want to start doing live events. I just need to figure out where to have them and how to host them and all of that. I just haven't figured that whole thing out yet, but I definitely need to. You guys have like a whole place to do it right there. So I need to figure that out.
Well, it's for rent if you ever want to use it.
Oh, well, I need to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about it. But a couple more questions before I let you go. If I am starting at zero, right? I know nothing about negotiating. I think I'm probably either in a relationship with a narcissist or I'm working for a narcissist. Like how can I identify that I'm speaking to a narcissist?
Well, first of all, they are going to come on super fast, super strong. They're going to seem way too perfect. And they're going to want to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. So whether it's a professional relationship or a personal relationship, it's, oh my gosh, where have you been all of my life?
Is that where the term love bombing comes from?
Love bombing, yes. And same thing. I mean, I have the same thing even in the personal situation. And it's going to be 45,000 text messages and emails all day long. And, we need to sign contracts, or we need to move in together, or we need to meet your family. Because why wait? Oh my gosh, you are the most incredible human being I've ever met on the planet. And my gosh, this and this is that. And, all of your dopamine receptors in your brain are going off like crazy. And all you can think about is this person. And then you might see red flags, but they quickly bat them away because all of this excitement is going on. And, you can barely have a chance to see them because of all of the fireworks that are going off. And so by the time everything all settles down and you're all moved in and the family's all met them or whatever it is, that's when you start to see the big red flags, big honking red flags are coming out. And now, that money that I borrowed from you, well, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. I'm paying that. Never paying that back. And why are you emailing me so much? Why are you so needy?
Yep. Got it. And how long, and this might vary, but how long does it typically take for that first phase to wear off to then, you really starting to see their true colors?
Not very long. Not very long. Because it's like they're holding their breath and they want to get to the withdrawal stage. I mean, it's like they're depositing and they want to withdraw pretty quickly. So I would say, within a few months at the most, maybe it could be up to a year sometimes, but really, I would say it's usually within a few months, usually.
It's been a ton of fun. Rebecca, what's one thing that if you had to leave this earth right now, you would want people to know?
Oh my goodness. If I had to leave this earth for you?
Yeah, it's very dramatic over here.
Yeah. I love my family.
That's probably the best answer I've gotten to that question, honestly. I would say that what I really
live for people to know is that I want people to serve their souls at their highest level. I mean, they were created by God to serve their souls at the highest possible level. And anything less than that is, I think, disrespectful to God. And so God created you to have abundance at every possible level. And so wants you to have everything in every possible way. So, and I believe that I've been chosen. I'm very humble in that. So everything that I have and everything that I speak, and it's in service.
Love it. That literal goosebumps, because that's something that I believe so deeply to my core, is that anything less than living your true authentic self and seeing how far you can exceed your gifts is truly a disservice to your maker. So I'm right there with you. But that was so good. Where can people find out more about you and find your book?
So slaythebully.com is where you can find everything about the book. From there are links to all of the different, your favorite bookstores. So you can buy the book there. I mean, it's available anywhere you buy books, but you can also get free phrases for disarming narcissists if you would like at disarmthenarc.com. So if you want phrases for disarming narcissists, you can just jump in and grab those for free as well. You can check out my YouTube channel at RebeccaZung.tv. And you can follow me on Instagram at Rebecca Zung. Those are probably the best links for you.
Perfect. Rebecca, thank you so much. I can confirm that I am not a narcissist. And I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.